Hello everyone and welcome to the first preseason video of NRL Supercoach 2022 on my brand new channel, A Man Talks NRL Supercoach. Some of you guys may be familiar with my videos that I did for the 2021 season. That was on my old channel. I've created a separate channel as some of you may have seen that I was doing Fantasy Premier League videos. So I thought, why not just start afresh? Hopefully you guys can jump over as well and hop on for the 2022 season. So in this first video for 2022, we're going to be looking at who has the best draw from rounds 1 to 6. So video, we're going to be looking at the best teams and obviously which players we could consider as well to begin building our teams for the 2022 season. But as always, really appreciate a thumbs up if you do enjoy the video. Really appreciate a subscription to the channel as well. There's going to be more content coming out through the preseason for this season and also throughout the 2022 NRL season. So hopefully you guys enjoy it, but let's get straight into it. So there's a couple of reasons why I think it's important to consider the draw early on in the season as well, especially when we do have the flexibility of being able to change every aspect of our 25-man roster. Now the first part of that is potentially it gives you a better platform to have a good strong start to the season, and obviously you want to be starting off as high as you can, as early as you can, and you want to stay there throughout the season. So obviously there's a lot of guesswork that's going to be involved, but if you can pick the teams that have the better draws on paper, it just gives you a better probability that the players you select from those teams are going to do, they're going to perform better, you would think. So it helps you get a good early start to the season. It's something that I found as well last season. I started pretty well where in the round, I think around round 7 or 8, I was in the top 1,000. Unfortunately, I slipped because I basically didn't own Tom Trbojevic in time, but it gave me a good platform. I just was unable to kind of continue it, but having that good platform was a good thing to have it at the beginning of the season. Second reason why is that we don't actually have player prices change until round 3 or the player has played their third game. And so if you're able to potentially target players who have good early draws, you know that they've maybe got a very low break even, therefore that means they can actually rise quite a bit in price. If you're able to save a couple of trades by having those key players in your team prior to their initial price rises, it enables you to either save your trades or potentially use your trades to bring in others. Therefore you can actually build very nice kind of squad value to begin the season. And kind of another point on that trade saving, I think we're going to come into a season that's probably going to have a lot of COVID disruption. So I think just being able to build a team where, if you pick players who are going to be solid for at least the first 6 rounds, it just means that that even if they don't deliver for maybe the first couple of weeks, you can hold on to them and enable you to, not have to sell them because you know that they've still got some good games coming up where they can deliver for you. So I think there's a few reasons why I think it's important to consider the early draw. But enough of that, let's actually see now which teams have got the best draw on paper. And so the team that actually comes out on top of my kind of 2022 draw spreadsheet, whatever that I've made in the off season, is the North Queensland Cowboys. So the Cowboys, haven't been the best performing team in the past couple of seasons. So you could be a little bit hesitant in terms of jumping on their players, but they've got a very nice draw to begin the first 6 weeks. So you can see they're Bulldogs, Raiders, Broncos, Roosters, Warriors, and Raiders. Now Raiders, you could argue, could be tough, but last season they weren't a very tough opponent in all honesty, really. If they come back to that kind of pre-2021 form, they could be considered a tough team, but the way that I've kind of, categorized the difficulty of all these teams is mainly based on the ladder for 2021. So that's why you see the Raiders in that kind of grey shading mid-table. Bulldogs and Broncos were towards the bottom of the table, therefore they're a bright green. Roosters is probably the main tough matchup for the Cowboys there, you can see in round 4, so they're a darker shade of red. And then you've got the Warriors, who are just a little bit step above the Bulldogs and the Broncos. Now, it's a little bit difficult to say, is this optimally the way to look at the difficulty of teams, and it's probably not, because this is all based on 2021 results, and it's not really factoring in the players that teams might have bought or players that might have been lost. So that's one thing we have to keep in mind when looking at every team's draw. But I think Cowboys still have a very good draw on paper. So you can see Bulldogs and Broncos in the first 3. That's a nice little window in the short term to target players like especially your attacking players. So someone like Valentine Holmes or Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow, who's been tipped to actually start in the fullback position for 2022. He could be a nice little price riser potentially. So this is kind of how I'm thinking about, when I'm looking at teams with good draws. But based on the matchups, does it favor defensive players like your forwards, or maybe does it favor the attacking players like your center wings and your fullbacks? Because that's going to maybe enable you to better pick when you're building your team which of the players potentially might actually do well to begin the season and therefore maybe increase in price, because we do like having that at the beginning of the Supercoach season. So Valentine Holmes and Tabuai-Fidow are a couple of players I've highlighted because they're probably going to be the 2 main attacking players that I think you're going to be looking at from the Cowboys. Again, a very nice short-term window from rounds 1 to 3, but decent matchup still against the Warriors and the Raiders in rounds 5 and 6. So next up are the Warriors, and the Warriors have got a dream start to the season. So you've got the Dragons, the Titans, the Tigers, the Broncos, and the Cowboys before a tough matchup against the Roosters in round 6. But those first 5 weeks for the Warriors, who have actually looked to have bought quite well in the off-season, obviously they've got Adam Fanua-Blake midway through last season, but they've also now got Sean Johnson back in the mix. He's probably going to be very popular as a kind of preseason, I think, halfback / 5'8" option. Given that really nice draw as well, you'd hope that potentially he's got a good chance of getting good attacking stats as well. And this also then enables you to consider some of their wingers and their centers as well. We've got Euan Aitken pictured there as well, given that he probably is looking like he might potentially play in the back row. So playing on an edge, he also could be someone who potentially can get some attacking stats. And so, he can definitely also be someone who benefits from this nice early draw for the Warriors. You could even throw in someone like Adam Fanua-Blake, who is prone to also getting attacking stats. So the Warriors are a team I'm definitely looking at as well when I'm looking to build my kind of initial squad for the 2022 season. I think with a nice kind of midterm range of, good games, from rounds 1 to 5, Warriors are definitely a team that I'm looking to target for early season. Now, next up are the Melbourne Storm. Now, the Storm on paper in the first 3 rounds don't have the easiest run. You could say the Rabbitohs and the Eels feature there, but nice matchups against the Tigers and the Bulldogs kind of around that. Does make the first 4 weeks look okay on paper for the Storm, and then they've got the Raiders and the Sharks. The difference is that we also have to factor in the quality of the actual team that we're looking at, and the Melbourne Storm are one of the best teams in the entire competition, if not the best, alongside the Penrith Panthers. So I think draw is less of an issue when you're looking at these top teams, and I think the fact that they've still got 4 out of those first 6 games are really, really nice on paper. Still think you can definitely target a lot of their assets. So Harry Grant, Cam Munster and Ryan Papenhuyzen I think are probably 3 of the best options that you can consider. Ryan Papenhuyzen is someone who I've definitely got firmly in mind as someone I'm going to want to target for the early season. But Harry Grant was by far, when he was getting the minutes, the best hooker to go for Supercoach. So those 2 especially I'm looking at. I think in the halves you maybe have a little bit more variety, so don't have to necessarily go with Munster, but we've seen that Grant and Papenhuyzen do have that really big upside. So I think in games against the Tigers in round 1, you could even potentially consider Papenhuyzen as a good captain. And I think that might be even a good enough reason to consider someone like him to begin the season. But I think overall the Melbourne Storm, decent run on paper for the first 6 games, but they're that good of a team that I think you can safely consider their players, even in a kind of tougher stretch as well. So I think the Storm assets definitely top of mind when building my team to begin the season. Now, next up are the Panthers, and they fall into a very kind of similar vein as the Melbourne Storm in the sense that, they're a top team, even though they've got some slightly tougher games on paper, the Sea Eagles and then the Rabbitohs in the first 4 weeks. The other 4 games, though, just look really, really good. You've got the Dragons, the Knights, the Bulldogs and the Broncos. The downside with the Panthers is that those 2 really nice games come at the back end of this kind of 6-game stretch. You can see in rounds 5 and 6, but I think we can expect that the Panthers can still start the season well. I guess question marks will be about how does Nathan Cleary kind of bounce back from his surgery, and so maybe this could be an option where you can maybe avoid some of their kind of big hitter players to begin the season, but maybe around round 5 is when you maybe want to start looking at bringing in some of their players, because games against the Bulldogs and the Broncos look really juicy. Even the Dragons and the Knights, who were a little bit leaky at times in the previous season, I think it is potentially a good scope to get your Panthers players. So Cleary was obviously one of the standout players from the 2021 season. Ryan To'o was probably the best centering option to go for as well, and I think he starts the season at a very, very premium price at like 700k. So this maybe could be a reason where if you say, well, Sea Eagles and the Rabbitohs in the first 4 weeks, maybe I don't go with To'o to begin the season, use that money to build up my squad elsewhere, but maybe look to try to target him for, say, round 5. And then we've got Isaac Targo as well, who could be a nice cheap enabler as well. He could be someone, at a cheaper price point you can afford to get away with to begin the season. But bringing those kind of big hitter options like Cleary and To'o, it could be more of a get them in a little bit later, but try to have a plan to get them in, because I think they're going to be players that we're going to want in the early parts of the season as well. Now, next up are the Roosters. Again, the first 3 games on paper don't look the best. You've got the Knights, the Sea Eagles and the Rabbitohs, but it's the 3 games after that and actually beyond that as well. The Roosters do have a very nice draw. Cowboys, the Broncos and the Warriors. 3 defenses who have been very obliging in the past couple of seasons. I think James Tedesco, obviously maybe you can consider had a bit of a down season in 2021, but his down season was still an amazing Supercoach season average wise. So I think Tedesco and Papenhuyzen in combination will be a very popular fullback combo, and Luke Keary in your halves could be a bit of a punt as well. He's just coming back from an ACL injury, but as a half, hopefully he doesn't have to do as much workload as, say, a forward who gets an ACL injury. So I don't mind Keary to begin the season as a bit of a punt, or again, he could be someone that you could maybe look to bring in just rounds 4, but obviously we can't always just factor in plans to get someone from, say, round 4 or 5. We have to have some of these players, I think, to begin the season as well if we can, because we just don't know what other fires are going to be to begin the season. And then I've got Suwali potentially if he locks in a centre wing position, although he's also going to be coming back off an injury as well, so there's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to have to learn in the preseason. But these are obviously just going to be my initial thoughts thoughts around some of the teams who've got better draws on paper, and maybe just to keep in mind when we're looking to build our team, maybe this player is someone, in a 50-50, I'm going to go for that guy because he's got a slightly better draw than this other guy, so he might have better kind of average and points potential and also cash cow potential as well. Now, next up are the Broncos. So obviously the Broncos haven't been the best team in the past couple of seasons, but I still think there are a couple of players that we can consider, and the draws from rounds 2, 3, and 4 are pretty good. Bulldogs, Cowboys, and the Warriors, still very good matchups on paper. Obviously, the problem is that they're kind of sandwiched by very tough games against the Rabbitohs, the Roosters, and the Panthers. Now, you might say it's a bit odd saying you're doing a video about the best draw, but you're including the Broncos, who've been very poor, and they've got the Panthers, the Roosters, and the Rabbitohs. Don't be kidding. But I still think guys like Payne Haas can deliver in any game, and this is what I'm saying in terms of you have to assess when you're looking to bring in a player. When you're looking at the draw, I think it matters more for the attacking players. So someone like Kotoni Staggs, maybe if you're thinking about him, for the first 4 weeks, he could be a very good option to build some initial price rises from rounds 3 onwards. Whereas someone like Payne Haas, he can verse the Storm or the Panthers, and he can still churn out 70 plus points in pure base because he's just that much of a worker. So this is definitely something I'm considering, that I think Payne Haas is probably going to be someone I'm wanting to have in my team to begin the season, and I don't really care that he's got some tough matchups, but the fact that he has got easy matchups is a good thing. It might mean he can get some line breaks, some offloads, maybe even jag a try as well. And obviously someone like Kotoni Staggs, we've seen that he's got very good running ability and obviously can get attacking stats in any game. So I think the draw on paper looks tough, but for someone like him of his caliber, it might not mean as much. So this is the kind of thought process that's going into my mind as well, and I think these two could be good options as well for the Broncos. Again, very nice games in rounds 2, 3, and 4. And so the last team that I wanted to talk about was actually the Gold Coast Titans. Now, we saw the Titans actually perform quite well to end the 2021 season, and they've got some nice games, again, rounds 2, 3, and 4 against the Warriors, the Raiders, and the Tigers. Some tougher matchups. They actually played the Eels twice in the first 5 weeks, and then it's the Sea Eagles. So there's some 3 kind of tougher matchups there, but 3 good matchups thrown in there as well. And I think someone like Dave Fifita, if you are considering him, last season he was just by far the best second row forward to go for. I don't even remember how much of a clearance there was in terms of his average from the next best second row forward, but it must have been at least 10-15 points because his game was just made for Supercoach. He was getting tackle breaks for fun, he was offloading a lot, getting a bag full of tries as well, so he was just getting attacking stats. The base wasn't quite there, but he was getting that many attacking stats that we didn't even need it. He was scoring hat-tricks, and I remember that one hat-trick he scored against the Rabbitohs, I think it was, so you could even make an argument that the matchup on paper for him doesn't even matter as much. Now, if you are looking at other players and the Titans, you could consider someone like Toby Sexton if he does actually nail down that halfback spot. He was actually doing quite well to end last season. He came in kind of late in the season to the team. He was actually goal kicking as well, which is something that's good for Supercoach. It means extra attacking points as well. And so you could see him, maybe if you're looking at him maybe for early cash generation, could be good for rounds 2, 3, and 4 when he has some nice matchups on paper. So I'm a little bit more kind of indecisive in terms of do I want to go for someone like a Sexton, but I've got full confidence in someone like a Fifita if you're willing to pay top dollar, because I imagine he's probably going to be around the mid 750k mark, so he's going to be quite expensive. But when you see Warriors, Raiders, and Tigers, especially round 4 against the Tigers, I think you're going to be a little bit afraid of not owning Fifita, so maybe it's a bit worth actually just paying the money up front and getting him from round 1. So that's it, everyone. That is my video on the best teams and potential players to target as well for rounds 1 to 6 of the NRL season, and obviously for NRL Supercoach. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. As I mentioned, this is the first kind of pre-season video for 2022. There's going to be more to come, and so definitely if you want to see more of them, click that subscribe button. And if you did enjoy the video, really appreciate a thumbs up, as it helps the YouTube algorithm and gets the word out there that there's going to be more Supercoach videos for 2022. But I'll see you all in the next one.